Hey everybody, it's Durger time, and welcome to a brand new series on my channel, The Wednesday Night War. This is the inaugural episode, episode 0, if you will, where we'll be outlining the goals and the rules of this new TEW 2016 series. Now, we kind of have to do this because this is definitely going to be, well, probably unlike anything else out there. It's certainly not like anything that I've done on this channel before. Now, we've done a ton of TEW series and Let's Plays and fantasy bookings and all that, but this is going to be a little bit more, I guess, direct and a little bit more competitive with myself. So the goal of this series is to simulate and look at the current Wednesday Night War that's about to brew starting October 2nd between WWE's NXT and, of course, TNT's AEW. Something I'm sure we're all very excited about. I know I am. I cannot wait. This is really one of the most exciting times to be a wrestling fan in years. And I feel like I'm just going to have weeks and weeks of great wrestling to watch, no matter what side you're watching primarily. Now, this series is going to be focused on NXT. I was debating back and forth whether I wanted to play as All Elite Wrestling and NXT. It's certainly All Elite Wrestling, despite having a mountain of money backing it, and it probably could be considered the underdog. Obviously, WWE is pretty much the Goliath in this David and Goliath tale, but I think NXT is in a more interesting place than AEW. We kind of know what AEW is going to be. We know how it's going to run. It's going to be very focused on maybe simulating that WCW run. But NXT is kind of reacting to it. And NXT, I think, is in a much worse place coming into this. Its momentum's died down. Its roster's probably weaker than it's been for a while. And it always has the looming threat of the Vince McMahon intervention that could possibly ruin it at any moment. So this is what this entire series is going to be about. It's going to be about emulating that, and in order to emulate the war itself, we've set up some rules that we're going to be abiding by. And this is really the crux of the show, and I think what's going to make this series really interesting and really different than anything else I've done on the channel before. So I hope you guys like it. Let's get into the rules so you can kind of understand what's going on. Okay, rule number 1. And this is very obvious. NXT and AEW will compete head-to-head every episode, with me, the player, controlling NXT. So, very obvious, we will be looking at them in relation to each other. And they will be going head-to-head on Wednesdays. We will be looking at it and seeing if there's a winner or a loser, or I guess potentially a tie. Rule number 2. The arbitrary war progress bar, which is right up on the top of your screen, you'll see right now, will be tracking who is winning and losing the war. So this guy here is completely arbitrary. It moves up and down based on a whole bunch of metrics. It's a little bit of a fuzzy number game because those maybe not necessarily set in stone yet. We'll see how it goes. But as you see, you have AEW on one side, NXT on the other, and a bar that flows from left to right. If you played a game like Battlefield, you've probably seen something similar to this, and we'll be applying it here. If at any point the bar reaches either end of the screen, the war is over, and history will be decided. Either AEW succeeds, and they continue on, and the NXT project gets relegated back down into a developmental program, or NXT crushes AEW, and AEW ultimately folds or goes into obscurity. One of these two outcomes will be determined, and it will be determined through these bars on the top of your screen. How do these bars move up and down? Well, that goes to rule number 3. Points to the war bar will be rewarded through higher viewer ratings and higher scores after every episode. So, whoever moves up and back and down, kind of going back and forth, whoever gets a higher viewer rating that episode will get some points. Whoever gets a higher score will get some points. And there's also an extra metric, and that's because at the end of every episode, I want to hear who had the better show. So the points will be rewarded through higher viewer ratings and higher scores. So every week we'll be looking at it. If NXT's got a higher, viewer count, they get some points. If AEW ends up having a higher overall rating of their show, they're going to get points. And the balance kind of shifts the power dynamic on the bar. And we'll see that reflected on the bar in real time. And again, if it ever pushes it to the end, then the war is over. Rule number 4, repeat weekly failures of NXT will initiate the Meddling McMahon Wheel, which will be randomly spun and will be filled with annoying, silly, or downright frustrating booking instructions. These are chosen by me, my friends, and of course you all. So I want to see all of the viewers, all my subscribers, if you're on Twitter, send me your annoying McMahon booking decisions for NXT. It could be literally anything. It could be firing people. It could be pushing people to the moon. It could be giving people belts randomly. The idea here is that the lowered ratings is frustrating Vince McMahon, and he's meddling with Triple H's booking decisions and telling him, you have to do this. I'm still your boss. It will be a wheel. It will be randomly spun. So feel free on all weeks if you want to flood my comments with really bad meddling McMahon decisions. Just say that this is for the Meddling McMahon wheel, and I will gladly put it on there to increase my suffering through this Let's Play series. In addition to these rules, there's a bit of addendum. I can hire and fire anybody available. That just gives me the creative freedom that if I see free agents out there, or if I can scout people away, I can do it. I'm not restricted to the roster that is currently available in NXT, though I will be starting with that roster. But in addition to that, final rule will be something that we implement only today during this episode 0 setup, is in order to bolster the roster, Vince McMahon has allowed me 5 randomly assigned draft picks from the roster. And a tag team does count as one pick in the event that they're an important, integral tag team. And we will be doing that by using a wheel. So let's bring up the wrestler wheel. You can't see the names on it because there are a lot. There's like 80 people. So no, these are all, the rules for this one is that they are all alumni of NXT. Now, I removed some people that were only there for a little bit. There's nobody on here that doesn't currently work for WWE in some capacity. So you're not going to see people like Juice Robinson, who I might love to have back in NXT. But obviously, there's no way that Vince McMahon can just get him. I would need to get a contract for him. And maybe that's something we scout out as we do some talent scouting. We might decide that we're going to be looking for some past people that maybe we did wrong in the past to bring them back in the fold to steal them from AEW. So let's get on with our 5 spins. I have no idea where it's going to go. I can tell you who I want right now, who I would really like in NXT above everybody else. Are personal favorites of mine that I think we could really use. I would love to get Sami Zayn back. I would love to get Finn Balor back. I would love to get probably Kevin Owens back. Hey, how about a Bray Wyatt? He's on the wheel. But, for all that, we might get a Bo Dallas or, somebody else that we might not want. I would love to have Sasha Banks back in the fold and really bolster our women's division. We will have to see. So we get 5 spins, and we will see here together on the Wheel O Wrestlers what the hell actually happens for us here. So let's go ahead and spin it and get our first random draft pick. Zack Ryder. It's not bad. Zack's always been kind of underutilized in the WWE universe, and has had a successful run as a member of the Hype Bros. Now, you notice that he's not part of a tag team on this because I felt that while his run in NXT was exclusively to help Mojo Rawley get over, he's not by himself an integral unit of a tag team. So we do currently now have Zack Ryder on the roster. All right, let's go ahead and spin that wheel again. Let's see what number 2 for the picks are. 2. Bray Wyatt. All right. So we got the Fiend himself will be making a draft debut on NXT Live for us. He obviously doesn't have the entire Wyatt family, though we are in an alliance with WWE as a company in our brand, so we can get loans for people over. So there's potential that we could still pull them in, but we've now secured exclusivity of Bray Wyatt as the third brand of the WWE Universe. That's a big get. I mean, we could do some real damage with that. Yes! Oh, actually a dark horse that I've been wanting for. We got the Revival. So, no flips, just fists. We got them. Probably my favorite tag team in the world. And one, honestly, probably in real life, I would love to see go in AEW and really make their tag team division something memorable. Have not really been well utilized since their departure from NXT. And this is maybe a chance to bring them into the fold, into the spotlight of our NXT live show, and really show what we can do with some proper booking for them. That's exciting. So that was number 3. We have 2 more draft picks. Like I said, while these are 2 wrestlers, because they're so integral to one another, we're just counting them as 1 draft pick, because they're never going to be broken up. Well, probably not ever going to be broken up. At least if we're booking them right, they're probably not going to be. And, they don't really count as 2 people. They just count as 1 cohesive unit. So, number 4, let's go. Let's see what we got. Don't be No Way Jose. Sasha Banks. Good get. Couldn't ask for much better. Probably one of the issues with our NXT live show is that we have a lot of female wrestlers, but they were all developmental talent. They're probably all weaker. Having a really strong presence on the women's division to balance off Shayna Baszler is going to be a really big deal for us. And probably if we are looking realistically at the AEW roster right now, their women's division sucks. So having a stronger one is probably going to give us an advantage. Awesome. Our final pick. Let's see number 5. What are we going to get? Xavier Woods. So kind of an interesting pick there. Xavier Woods breaking up from the New Day. It's going to be difficult. There's definitely potential there, but I think it's not out of the realm of reality, I guess, to talk about the fact that probably Xavier is the weakest link of the New Day. He works more as a manager. Now, we could still bring the New Day in, but he's going to be an exclusive wrestler for us. Now, that sucks kind of for the New Day. I know it's fake. I kind of feel bad. I don't want to break them up, but I mean, let's be realistic. 3 of them can't count as 1. So we'll have Xavier Woods on the show, and we'll see what we're going to do with them. Maybe we go back to the Truth and Consequences Austin Creed that we know of old TNA fame, but I don't know what we're going to do there. But we have them, so that's something, I suppose. Now, let's just quickly, before we wrap this up, now that we got our 5 extra assignments, I'm just going to show you briefly what our situation looks like on the database before we finalize it and get going. So we're 2-hour show on Wednesday. You see I've set NXT as a separate company, and I've given them C+ momentum with $10 million to play around with. I got to fix that. There is no limit to their max size. Based on what they look like here, and we probably should have a low-level drug policy, I would think. We'll play around with that. I'll see what they have in real life, because I feel like they do have one, but we might not go crazy here. So they have a C+ momentum because they kind of waned for a while. They're probably not the strongest they've been. They're a far cry from the hot 2014 NXT for certain, and probably weaker than the 2016 during the I guess that was at the Finn Balor Nakamura era kind of situation. Definitely a lot weaker, I think, in terms of roster, in terms of popularity. So they're not going to be as white hot as AEW comes in. We do have money. 10 million is pretty good. And with the production, we've moved up the popularity kind of on the scale to make them comparable to AEW. So they're both considered cult. Technically, NXT is not a cult company, but for the sake of the game, we're giving it a bit of a bump just so that they're basically on equal footing for the most part. And it's believable to say if NXT is going to be on USA, it could really be considered a much larger show than it was previously, right? So it's no longer in its regional roots. It is a cult company. That gives us a lot of wrestlers to work around with. Our roster, though, is bloated as all hell. A lot of developmental contracts that I needed to turn into exclusive pay-per performance, with the staples being listed as a written contract, which is pretty much how their real life contracts are probably set up. And with developmental, you can't have developmental working in the same company. Now, we may make a developmental company ourselves as an NXT developmental branch, because obviously now being a 2-hour live show, we can't be the area where you put developmental talent on anymore. It's only going to hurt our brand. So we might have to lay off a bunch of people, or maybe we invest some of that $10 million into keeping them, but putting them on a developmental branch and see if we can survive the early parts of the war. Perhaps we can bring the developmental talent up and have them pretty well experienced and not struggling. Something that AEW might not have in their pocket that we might have that may be an advantage. AEW, we can look at real quick just to see who our competition is. Not all of Japan. Have about the same prestige, same amount of money, and a little bit more momentum. We're not going crazy because we don't want it to be far off, but I think it's believable to say that they're definitely going to have more momentum going into their debut than NXT's debut will. But the sheer fact that NXT's link to the WWE is going to give them a much larger casual fan base than it's going to be on All Elite. So while All Elite has more momentum going into this battle, this war, I think it's believable to say that NXT is really in the long term not trailing that far behind. For the sake of, they have a medium drug policy, so we should probably set it as the same, actually. So same situation, because they have 10 million starting. We're trying to be even. Obviously, these numbers are not realistic because, Tony Khan might be able to invest as much money as he wants into the company. In the same way, Vince McMahon could pretty much dump an unlimited amount of money into NXT if he wanted to. But to keep it fair, let's keep it at the same buying level. To just say that that's what AEW has, and that's what NXT is willing to also operate under for the time being, to give them, it's an absurd amount of money. And really, honestly, this game will end far sooner than us losing any money or them losing any money. It's really going to come down to the ratings game and who tops off that arbitrary war progress bar. That's going to be the name of the game. So they obviously have a pretty decent roster, not nearly as much of us, but they have some people that are, in really good names, really good positions here. We need to adjust their contracts before we go in here, though. Everybody should actually be pretty much written. But we're going to do that off camera. I'm going to set it up. The idea generally being that these guys, they're working there, pretty much only working there, or their exclusive pay-per performance, and that's about it. Because while this mod, I think, was the August save of, I think it was the August Real World Chronicle save, obviously they were still wrestling elsewhere. In reality, they're going to be pretty much exclusive to AEW once it starts on August 2nd, which is right around the corner. So we'll get that set up, and then all things go well, we'll have our actual first real episode starting this week. Like I said, this was just the setup. So homework for you guys: give me your McMahon meddling ideas in the comments. Let me know who you think we should get in on the roster now. Who should we try to steal from? Anything else you guys are thinking? People we should drop now? And of course, your opinions on that developmental idea. Do we want to have a developmental territory for NXT, or do we just want to let go all of our developmental contracts to save some money and save some face? It's 50-50 for me, but we might be able to do it for both ways. Anyways, guys, that's it for episode 0. We will see you for the real show starting very soon. Thank you for watching. I hope you are excited for this new show. I certainly am. I will see you next time.